Tonight I am starting with a demonstration. I want to show you how sharp this knife is before showing you how I got there. Because getting there was not easy. You see, I'm using a brand new device that was provided to me by its manufacturer for review, evaluation, and making this video. What you just saw me do is fold just a regular piece of paper towel and place it on the blade that I just finished sharpening. Ready? Just a small cut. I bet ninjas out there are laughing at this video. Alright, we're going for a second round. A little better this time. One more time. I don't think I should quit my daytime job. That's better. I don't know if this demonstration impressed anyone, but maybe, just maybe, if you tried it at home with your sharpest knife, you may want to know how I got there. Recently, I published a few tutorials about this XARILK Gen 3 sharpener, which I enjoyed using. And the company spotted my videos on YouTube and sent me this freebie here. This is XARILK Portable Folding Sharpener System. And the reason I'm showing you this manual, it shows how to flip the knife from one side to another when you finish sharpening one side. And how do I put it gently? It didn't work at all. I was a bit disappointed, to say the least, and even boxed it back in frustration. But I figured out that I give it a shot in front of the camera and try to fix the problem. Let's get straight into the issue, and if I fix it, I'll show you how the rest of it works. So to flip the knife, I will have to pull that jaw outwards and then rotate it. But as you can see, no amount of force allows me to do it. Kudos to designers, all the screws except for a couple small set pins are removable with a 3mm Allen wrench, but you may need two, so you need to get another one in addition to the one that's provided to disassemble this particular block. The hinge here is a pin that spans almost the entire width of the device, and it has female threads on one side and the socket head on the other, and it mates with a matching screw. The screw is on the left as you look at the device, if you have it in this orientation, and here it is, came out. And there are a couple of shim washers on each side, and I'm having to knock the pin out using my little jeweler's mallet. And here's the pin. Now the whole clamping block comes out, just like that. And there are a couple more shims on the opposite side. There is a hole in the middle of the hinged portion, and inside there's another 3mm socket, which I can unscrew using the same 3mm wrench. What comes out is a shoulder bolt with a coil spring over it. That's what creates the tension between the base and the clamping piece of this block. Unfortunately, they're still stuck together, and looking through there, I can see that the base has like a shoulder where the spring rests, then there's a through hole, and underneath it, there is a threaded hole. I'm going to grab a 5/32 or 4mm punch. It's a little bit oversized for the threads, and this way I'm not going to damage the threads, because next thing I want to do is tap it out. I'm being careful there not to damage anything, so kind of shining the light into there helps me to not miss the clearance hole. All it takes is 4 or 5 light taps, and it comes off. I'm looking into these holes with which dowel pins on the base are mating, and I'm actually seeing some kind of dry epoxy or thread lock compound. Sorry, I missed the camera here. You just have to take my word for it. It's there. Looks like they took a little bit of a shortcut here and epoxied the dowels into the block instead of pressing them in. Indeed, it looks like they are epoxied. You can see this brown substance around the base of each dowel, and that epoxy spread into the mating holes during the assembly process and was allowed to dry there. And I hope you can see it in this light that it's brown and semi-opaque. The light and clicking emanate from my Olight iMini that is on my neck. And it's been on my neck for weeks now because it became an indispensable part of my everyday carry arsenal. This light is so convenient, I just, every day I come up with a different use. For example, what you saw me or will see me do through this video is do this. And when I hang it like this, I can work on something in a dark environment and clearly see it. And another thing about this light, it's rechargeable. This is a USB, regular USB, old school, big USB pluggable light. So you plug it into any USB on an outlet that has a USB port and it will charge. I literally did everything you're not supposed to do with a light. I even swam in a swimming pool with it and it still works. Anyway, I will not be making a recommendation for purchasing of this XARILK foldable sharpener because of the quality control and other issues that I'll get into in a minute. But if you want to help my channel and you appreciate this kind of content, please check out those links because I'll get maybe $1 commission if you buy a light. They're $20. Now back to XARILK. First, I check if just breaking them apart will assure proper function, and as you can see, it does not. They're still binding, which means that I will have to sand the epoxy off. So I'm going to take a very fine 1000 grit aluminum oxide sandpaper and gently and slowly sand the epoxy off. Removing metal is not an option here because I need to maintain a slip fit between the dowels and the mating holes. Otherwise, it will be a very sloppy fit, and who wants that? After a few minutes, I am satisfied that the pins are clean and clear of epoxy. And now I need to try it again. And while the fit improved some, they're still binding a little too much for my taste. Applying the oil you see here in the background did not help either. And after a few trials and errors, I end up rolling that same sandpaper into a little tube and gently lapping the bores. After a few minutes of this exercise, I feel like I'm done. Now I need to remove any kind of shavings out of these bores. Not shavings, it's just like dust from the sandpaper. And now, after about 10 minutes of messing with it, it's finally working. I reassemble it in the reverse order. Don't forget to put the spring back onto the shoulder bolt. And then it just gets screwed in with an Allen wrench. I'll let it bottom out in the threads, making sure it's nicely torqued. And as you can see, it functions now. Reinstalling the hinge pin and the shims is a little bit tedious. There's not much room for error and dexterity is required. But eventually I'm able to reassemble the device. I am eager to find out if any of my viewers experienced the same thing. Or did it work like this straight from the factory? Please let me know. And now let's continue assembling the sharpener like nothing happened. First, you will need to place the plate retainer bushings onto the part of the handle that has the ball. The angle changed so you can see better. So here they are. They secure to the rod with these thumb screws, and the plate sits in between. And now you can screw in the rod. Only one Overtravel stop bushing is provided with the device. And the way I'm installing it here, it will prevent the rod from over-traveling in the pull direction. As I learned from using Gen 3 sharpener, one over-travel stop is not sufficient. You will need two, or you will be risking scratching the primary bevel on the blade during sharpening. Here's my technique for installing the plate. With both plate retainer bushings loose, I use the near end of the plate to compress the spring. And then I adjust the outer bushing to fit and secure it with a thumb screw. And if you wish to secure, you can, but you don't have to because there's enough tension in this spring to keep the plate. And here's why you need two over-travel stops. Let's pretend the edge of the clamp is the knife's edge. You will be getting a lot of this when you get enthusiastic with your stroke. On the outstroke, it can skip, striking the knife with this rod. On the forward stroke, if it skips, then the edge of the plate will scratch the primary bevel on your blade. To prevent that from happening, you need two stops. In the previous video, I showed you these split bushings that I got on Amazon. You get 4 for about $8, and I used 2 on my Gen 3 device. One went onto the Worksharp Professional Precision Adjust, and now I have one left over. Luckily, I had 2 sets for future endeavors. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to place this bushing here first, then run it through the bearing here. And now I can adjust in this direction. I'm going to leave, without the blade, it's hard to tell where you need to put the stop, and now it prevents it from skipping onto the primary bevel. I'm going to provide the link to these bushings in the description under this video. But now I would like to talk about some of the capability gaps that exist on this budget device. Here on my bench, I assembled 10 very popular knife models to show you that not all of them will fit into the clamp. On the right, there are knives that do fit: Murokniv, Mini Griptilian, Full-Size Bug Out, Hogue-Deca, and Kershaw Bel Air. On the left, as in left out, Microtech MSI, Spyderco Para 3, Full-Size Griptilian, Demco AD 20.5, Lender 2, and Essie Azula. None of these fit into the clamp on foldable XARILK. Let me show you. The clamp only opens to 100,000th of an inch or 2.7 millimeters. And because you would not want to push those aluminum jaws apart, very thin aluminum in this area, and opening and closing the jaws will fatigue it. Once it's fatigued to where it cannot spring back to its original shape, it will no longer ensure the symmetrical mounting of the blade. Besides, who wants to scratch the finish on their blade, forcing it into the jaws? I may go as high as 110 thousandths of an inch on the blade thickness, which is about 2 dimes pressed together, making this Mini Griptilian the thickest knife I would dare to sharpen on this device. You could use it on the kitchen or chef knives. The good news is, if your knife has full flat grind or sharp spine right there, you can still clamp it, as I'm about to demonstrate using this Kershaw Bel Air. And by clamping, I don't just mean stick it in there and hope for the best. It actually centers the knife pretty well, as I'm about to demonstrate. The provided Allen wrench will snug it up pretty well, but here is a little bit of a risk. If you under-tighten it, it will move in lateral direction. But if you over-tighten, you are risking stripping the aluminum threads, rendering the device useless. The good news is, unlike XARILK Gen 3 in the background, this device has a pretty wide jaw with a slot in the middle, allowing it to clamp on the blade even if the thickness varies between the ricasso and the tip. To mitigate the risk of stripping the threads, I use this torque driver. I set the torque to about 17.5 inch-pounds or 2 Newton meters and finish tightening with it. The click you hear means the screw reach the desired torque. I do it twice just to be sure. And if you don't have this driver, I will provide the link in the description. Checking out the fit of the blade, I discovered that this clamp moved in its main plane. But I don't think it's a really critical issue because it requires quite a bit of force to move. Speaking of movement, next I would like to check repeatability of the device when you flip from one side to the other. I use masking tape to mark the spot on the blade where I'm going to measure the angle. Then use my inclinometer and zero it out on the rod. Just bear with me. Here's another thing I'm still getting used to with this device is how to flip the blade. It's quite a complex set of movements, but if you know how to square dance, you should be a-okay. You see the rod doesn't pivot far enough left and right to clear the handle, which forced me to develop this sequence. Pivot up, rotate 90 degrees, reposition the rod, and finish the rotation the remaining 90 degrees. See how simple it was? And now let's complete our mission of checking repeatability of this angle. Let's see here. No comment required. Next task I'd like to cover is setting the angle. Remember, this is at 10 degrees. I actually measured 9.8, but it's close enough. So what you will need to do is zero out to the base. Let's double check. 9.8. Double checking the zero. Now bring it up here. And now you know you need to go lower 5 degrees or so. So you rough adjust it to here. And then use the fine adjustment to continue lowering it. There's a little latency on the inclinometer here. There you go. So now the total angle on your edge will be 15 degrees. Make sure you secure it everywhere. Looks like we're ready to sharpen. The mast itself moves a little bit, but because it slides along with this bearing, that does not affect your edge angle at all. Alright, this video got way longer than I expected. The fix took longer time. I could not leave it out because I'm an independent reviewer. And I did not want to hide, what I discovered, all the negatives I discovered about this device before I get into the positives. So the actual sharpening video will be published very shortly. I already finished filming it. I just need to edit it into a manageable length. And as soon as I do, I'll share all the techniques with you, especially how to get this device to generate a 11 degrees per side angle. And I could actually go even lower. Totally worth waiting for.